If you're anything like me growing up, you loved video games. Like most, video games were my way of escaping the never-ending terror that was elementary school. Video games have and will always be that escape for me. I was still and am an FPS gamer, meaning I grew up with games like Call of Duty, Halo, and even Gears of War. Now, were these games that little David at the age of 7 should be playing? Well, maybe not, but I was a little crackhead who wanted nothing more than to run around feeding my action-hungry brain. However, the older I got, the more games I was exposed to, and I began realizing that these games story-wise lacked it all. Games like Call of Duty, while yes, had a functional story throughout their campaign, it was rather bland and one-dimensional. Ah, yes, I'm a stereotypical soldier from some country that is usually an asshole to most people, but I have that one friend who always been there for me. Now we fight wars and do literal acts of terrorism together to go against this really evil guy that is kind of doing what we're doing, but for way worse reasons. Do you see the linear idea behind these games, stories, and characters? Now imagine a game where it fits these goofy stereotypes in a fun and interesting way, while still fitting an interesting story, while also having fun and exciting gameplay with progression throughout the story through loot and leveling up, and has easily one of the best video game villains of all time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Borderlands 2. Now, if you read this title and saw the thumbnail of this video, then you know what I'm going to be focusing on out of those points. Now, I could talk about how amazing Borderlands 2 is and how influential it was to the looter shooter genre, but that'll be for another video that I may or may not be working on. However, this video is going to talk about the man himself, Handsome Jack, and break down the character and understand what makes him such a good villain in these games. However, let's look at what makes a good villain. In modern day writing, the villain isn't always super evil and cruel, or if they are, they have a reason for it. Loki, for example, was Marvel's first magnum opus. He was the first villain that really shined in the powerhouse of heroes that Marvel was spewing out. His overarching charisma and his lavish charm made him a fan favorite. He was truly the cherry on top of Avengers 1 and would later be the supporting role of Thor Ragnarok. Throughout his story, from the ridiculousness of the first Thor movies to where he is now in his own show Loki, he was shown to be the selfish and villainous character. However, the more we got of him, the more we began to understand him. We began to see the more humanistic sides of Loki, and that made him more relatable to the audience. And the villain with a sense of humanity and relatability will forever be remembered by their audience. This is what made Loki such a good villain. And add this with Tom Hiddleston's amazing performance of the character, it was the perfect storm when it comes to character writing. This is something Damian Clark does with Handsome Jack's character. Not only was the writing behind the character so well, but Damian Clark also adds this charisma and relatability to the character, making Handsome Jack feel real, similar to what the MCU did with the character Loki. Handsome Jack feels real, and everything the character goes through we can relate to or understand in some way. We, as an audience, feel connected to the villain, something that makes a perfect villain. It's how people like myself remember these villains and grow to love them. Handsome Jack throughout Borderlands 2 is the big evil. His intention throughout the story is to kill us, the player, the heroes of the story, and the other filthy bandits of Pandora. We first encounter Jack when we survive the train crash and begin helping our new friend Claptrap, off the request of a lady named Angel, who in the first Borderlands helped our heroes open the vault and for some reason seems to be helping us again. However, almost immediately Jack makes it clear he wants nothing to do with the player and would rather them just turn themselves in than having to kill them himself. Now, Jack isn't really shown to be evil at the beginning of the story, outside of munching on shitty pretzels and buying diamond ponies, and yes, you did hear me right, fucking diamond ponies. We don't really see why he's the big bad. Sure, he's made some threats, but that's about it. It's not until we do the side quest Handsome Jack's Here that we see how far Jack will go to get what he wants. In the quest, we follow a series of eclogues from Helena Pierce, a familiar character if you'd ever played Borderlands 1. We follow her and her interaction with Jack when Hyperion forces hijack a train heading to Sanctuary. Here, Jack not only makes every choke in the universe towards Helena and her face,
holy nutballs! What happened to your freaking face?
he also then proceeds to shoot Helena in the face. For fun, of course. And then sanction Wilhelm to, quote, kill these savages. And then Wilhelm proceeds to kill everyone on the train. This is kind of an on-running thing with Jack, and something I think is written beautifully into his character. He, throughout the story, doesn't hate us specifically, at least not in the first half. He hates bandits, and we, in all sense of the word, are bandits. Throughout the game, we kill enemies called bandits. We are also ourselves bandits, and even the NPCs are all bandits, or helping us bandits. Jack wants to exterminate all of the bandits riddling Pandora. We, the players, are supposed to be made out as these heroes, but with the perspective of us simply being bandits, it makes you consider if we are truly the heroes of this story. Borderlands 2's story can be broken up into different acts. Act 1 is getting to Sanctuary and meeting our lovely cast of Scooter, Lilith, Roland, Marcus, Moxie, Ellie, and of course Mordecai and Brick in the later acts. And also, of course, saving Roland from the Bloodshots. Act 2 is getting more information on Jack's plan and eventually chasing down Angel. Act 3 is saving Lilith and putting an end to Handsome Jack once and for all. Act 1 is very straightforward, with us eventually saving Roland from the Bloodshots, and of course Hyperion. It's Act 2, however, where Jack's plan truly begins to show. Jack has been constantly hinting through dialogue that he has something big planned for us the player and everyone in Sanctuary. This plan is eventually revealed to us after we kill Wilhelm and bring back a shield core for Sanctuary. We find that it was trapped, and Jack, with the help of Angel, his daughter, lowers Sanctuary's shields and begin to fire mortar shots at it. This then rushed Sanctuary to pull drastic measures and turn the whole city into
and turn this city into a floating ass fortress of airborne awesomeness. B.
This is when we see Jack's plan finally come into fruition, when finding out that he is using his Siren daughter's powers to power the Vault Key. We then go on a multitude of quests, getting items to then break into Control Core Angel and rescue her. Then, near the end of the second act, we, the player, kill Angel at her own request, putting an end to Jack's plan. Or so we think. Act 2 has a lot to unpack, but what I want to focus on is how they portray Jack and his daughter's relationship. Jack openly shows care to Angel, and even though in the current event she is 18, Jack still treats her like his little girl. Though his actions of keeping Angel locked up, he tells the player during the boss fight in Angel's core that it's because of what Angel did to her mother.
You think I'm a monster, you think I enslaved Angel, but you didn't see what she did to her mother. I had to restrain Angel's power. You get that? I had to.
Jack seems to still have a human side to him. He isn't all evil and sadistic as portrayed so far. He has the soft side for his daughter, who seems to be the only family he has left. Even though his actions are cruel, he still wants the best for his daughter, as we see him beg the Vault Hunter not to kill her.
Are you hearing me? Please don't kill my baby girl.
Let's do that again sometime.
Who cares about the goddamn key? You're gonna end the life of an innocent girl!
Jack ended my life long ago. This has to end now, Vault Hunter.
He doesn't want his daughter to die and does everything in his power to stop us, the player, from killing his own daughter. However, we eventually succeed. This act is truly the final straw for Jack, leading him to take actions into his own hands. At the end of Act 2, he not only goes down to control Angel and kills Roland, he then captures Lilith and makes her power the vault. Also, quick pause. How the fuck does Roland die here? I have been playing these games since I was a kid, and to this day, I still have no idea how Roland dies, and why he doesn't just spawn back in as he did in Borderlands 1. Anyways, this leads us into Act 3 of the game, the final act and the end of Handsome Jack's story, which is easily one of the more boring acts since it's super straightforward gameplay-wise. However, there is a side quest that involves Jack called Kill Yourself, where we see a disheveled Jack so pissed off at you that he's willing to give you money to kill yourself.
I will pay you to kill yourself. I've got a perfect spot all picked out for you. And you don't want to? That's fine. Call the Hyperion Suicide Prevention Hotline and you'll get nothing. But if you want a huge reward, you jump off that cliff and become my bitch. Take your time. Okay. I guess you just killed yourself. Head back to the bounty board and I'll pay you.
Though he knows the player will just respawn, he still wants to see it. And of course, if you follow through, he will pay you and laugh at you for doing anything for money. Easily one of the more ridiculous side quests of the game, but I digress. Back to the story. We and our crew of bandits take on more and more and more robots sent by Jack, eventually meeting Jack at the vault at the Warrior's Den. We then have a quick boss fight with Jack where he calls us monsters and evil for what we did throughout the story. And of course, after beating the living shit out of Jack, he then summons the warrior to kill us. Then, in true Borderlands fashion, we kill the big bad and get tons and tons of loot for it. After we kill the warrior, a broken and bloody Jack stands before us, and we have the option to kill him or let Lilith kill him. However, if you're not so trigger happy, you can let Jack give his final words. And it's honestly super important to understand the character.
No, I can't highlight this. Not when I'm so close. And not at the hands of a filthy bandit! See, I could have saved this planet. See, I could have actually restored order. And I wasn't supposed to die by the hands of a child-killing psychopath! You're a savage. You're a maniac. You are a bandit, and I am the goddamn hero! The warrior was practically a god. How? How in the hell have you killed my warrior? You idiots! The warrior could have brought peace to this planet. No more dangerous creatures, no more bandits. Pandora, it could have been paradise!
Jax calls us savages, maniacs, and even child-killing psychopaths, and claims that he is the hero of this story. That he could have brought order and saved Pandora. This is what makes Jack such a good villain. All Jack wanted to do was bring order to Pandora. And sure, was this goal of his backed by his never-ending hunger of power? Sure, but isn't that what corporate businesses today do anyways? Jack's goal makes sense. He wanted to bring order to a planet filled with psychopaths, maniacs, and savages, and make Pandora into something better and bigger. We can see that with what he did with Opportunity, and sure, does it practically worship Jack like a god? Yes, but it's one of the only forms of civilization that we see outside of Sanctuary. Jack's vision makes sense, and the player came in and fucked everything up. We went against Jack in every step of the way, and not only that, we took away the person Jack cared about the most. This is what makes Jack so amazing, is that by the end of the story, we can almost sympathize with the character. And even though his actions are terrible and cruel, we still understand him and almost see him as the hero of the story. Because in all reality, we the players are just as savage and monstrous as Jack. We killed thousands of people to get to Jack and spilled ounces of blood all to stop Jack and get some fashionable loot. Jack is such a good villain because he is written to be the hero of this twisted story. Jack wins everyone over with his charm and charisma, but his story is written in such a humanistic way that we can relate so much to the character. Jack is truly the cherry on top to the already amazing story of Borderlands 2. However, this isn't the last we would see of Handsome Jack. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Borderlands, the pre-sequel. Now, say all you want about the game, it was good for the Borderlands franchise. Its main focus was to explain Handsome Jack and why he became the man we see in Borderlands 2. Now, I would love to go in depth with the story of the pre-sequel, however, this video is already getting insanely lengthy, so I'll just touch on the key points. We, the player, play as mercenaries. Yes, this includes fucking Claptrap. Yeah, you heard me right. Fucking Claptrap. They get offered a job by Hyperion to deal with their current situation of being attacked by the Lost Legion. Almost immediately, we bump into Jack, or should I say John. John is a low-level Hyperion tech employee who is just trying to figure out why the hell these idiots are attacking Hyperion, and he asks for the player to help him out. We see Jack before, well, Jack. It's almost off-putting to see the infamous Handsome Jack being so normal, so nice, and willing to give people chances. Throughout the story, we see Jack show mercy and try to make deals with people, like the sheriff from the first main town, on the moon. And yes, this whole game takes place on Pandora's moon, Elpis. We see the sheriff be the first reason why John turns into Jack. That idea of betrayal. Throughout the story, Jack's constantly putting his faith into other people, and yet gets stabbed in the back by everyone. When we, the player, and Jack ask for the assistance of Roland, Lilith, and Moxie, they all eventually betray us near the end of the game, saying that Jack is nothing more than a power-seeking monster. So just like the Lost Legion, they try killing him. And this all, by the end of the game, begins to whittle Jack down And once we, the player, open the vault and kill the Sentinel, Jack sits on his throne and begins seeing the future events of Borderlands 2. But right before he gets to the end, none other than Lilith runs in and smashes the device on his face. This leaves a brand mark of the vault on Jack's face, and as we can see, it leaves him looking rather fashionable. Anyways, this final act of betrayal ends with Jack in a frenzy, and doubles his hunger for power, eventually taking over Hyperion through very questionable means.
Mr. Tassiter? Mr. Tassiter, are you there?
Mr. Tassiter's been replaced, sweet cheeks. Starting today, you're working for me.
And rebranding as none other than Handsome Jack. However, this isn't the only time we get information on Jack's past. We also have side quests from Borderlands 3. And even though Jack isn't in the game outside of the DLC Moxie's Heist of Handsome Jack, for crying out loud, he isn't even talked about except in this one quest, where we, the player, go finding old tapes from Angel's past to better explain Siren's powers. In these tapes, we see even more into Handsome Jack's personal life. We find out that he wasn't lying when he said that he imprisoned Angel because of what she did to her mother. We see that in the tapes, Angel and her parents were being mugged, and Angel lost control of her powers and used turns to not only kill the mugger, but accidentally kill her own mother. This would eventually Jack into making Control Core Angel so that she couldn't hurt anyone else. This added backstory gives more humanity to Jack. And when you take this information and go back to play Borderlands 2, you can't help but gain even more appreciation for the character. His daughter's death means more when you realize all he was trying to do was protect her. His actions against Lilith and Roland are even more justified once you realize they tried to kill him first. His death is more sympathetic when you realize that Jack, all along, was truly the hero that Pandora never appreciated. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how you write a villain. All the details that went into making Jack, Jack, were organized in a way for us, the player, to appreciate the more we learned about him. The more backstory and context we got for the character simply added to everyone's reasons for why we loved him as a villain. Add this with Damian Clark's performance throughout the games, bringing even more life to the character. The villain with a sense of humanity and relatability will forever be remembered by their audience. This is never more true when talking about the one and only Handsome Jack.